recorded, so they're available for replay afterwards. We sometimes will use bits and pieces of them in our public relations and social media outreach. And speaking of GDPR and compliance and consent, let's see. I'll stop my share for a moment so that I can find the mute all button for just a moment more until we get started. All right. One more time. Welcome to Online Presenters Toastmasters. This is a club that meets online and focuses on learning skills for better webinars and online events. We want to thank RingCentral for allowing us to use the RingCentral Meetings platform as our online meeting platform. They have it integrated with a number of their other products, including Glip, which you see here. And they do want me to let you know that the cloud is winning in business communications and RingCentral is winning in the cloud. If you're not used to being in an online meeting, we do recommend that you find yourself a headset or some earbuds plugged into your computer will do in a pinch. Mute your mic when it's not your turn. You can also turn your video on and off, but we want to see you so that we feel like we're making a connection here. And one thing to know about this particular video tool is that you have the ability to control your own view. You can go back and forth between the gallery view where you see everybody and the active speaker view where you see the person who is actively speaking. We encourage you, if you are a speaker or a table topic speaker, to watch the time. And that can actually be one of the trickiest things of operating in an online environment, because the software tries to shift the little video squares around automatically and you can lose track of the time. So before you start presenting, make sure that you can find the thumbnail of the timer so that you can see those green, yellow, and red indicators. And I actually do still think it's a good practice to tap on a wine glass or have some audible cue as a backup in case the speaker has lost track of that video feed. If you are visiting and are interested in becoming a member, we do ask you to attend at least 2 meetings as a guest. You should know that it's an advanced club. It's not intended for absolute beginners. And that's more for the sake of people who may be joining to know that we're not going to spend as much time on the basic skills. But if some people come to us having given online speeches or taught courses or something else that makes them feel like they're professionally prepared for this, and you can make a 1 to 2 minute speech about why you want to join, and the board can vote you in regardless. And let's see, oh, we already did that. That means it is showtime, and I will turn control of the meeting over to John. I'm going to make you the host, which means you have the magic mute all button, and I will mute myself so that you can actually run your meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's an honor and the first part of my Toastmasters journey in online presenters as a first-time Toastmaster of the day, of the evening. It's not my first time overall in Toastmasters, but it's definitely here online. It's a challenge of sort because there are certain proceedings that we are following in our home club in brick and mortar. So instead of shaking a lot of hands here and surrendering the lectern further, I might extend my hand onwards. So one of the things that I would like to remind you before I start is that feel free to use the chat box in case you have any questions or any comments. At the bottom part of the screen, you will see a little icon that says chat. It might pop open or it might open on the side if you're in a full screen view, so that you can ask us questions and continue further. Today's theme, gracefully selected by Toastmaster Roger, National Be a Millionaire Day. Thank you for suggesting. That is a wonderful theme for today. I actually done some research, and obviously nobody has any idea when did it start. But one of the things that's for certain is that the term millionaire first appeared in English language in a written letter that was made by Lord Byron in 1816. There were only a few millionaires back then, and it was just before the industrial revolution where people started becoming millionaires outside of the aristocratic society. So it's quite an interesting feat to know where the millionaire came from. So one of the things, yes, that's correct. There were, I mean, a millionaire in the 1800s, that is something. I'm pretty sure that those people had significant wealth. But I think that National Be a Millionaire Day is a choice. So some people who chose to celebrate that day probably disagreed with the other people who celebrated Pick Strawberries Day, which falls on the same day. I guess that was one of the fun things. So again, it's a choice. One of the things that I would like to ask you is to feel free. Yes, Scott, do you have any comments? Just one thing?
No, it's okay.
Something?
I'm just adjusting the light, that's all, sorry.
Okay, sure. All right, so one of the things that we will be doing today is following the regular proceedings as it is tradition here in the Online Presenters. And I would like to introduce to you our counter for today, which is Toastmaster Elaine. Toastmaster Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. I am your counter for the day. I will be following and listening closely for those unintentional utterances of so, well, but, and filler words like that. I'll be giving my report at the end of our meeting today. Thank you. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Elaine, for that introduction. Our timer for today is Scott Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, or Toastmaster of the day. I will be the timer, so I'm the person to keep everybody on time, or close to it anyway, or I'm going to attempt to anyway. Still working on split cam with all the different colours, so I'm going back to my original. So there's a green. And we also have a yellow, and we have a red. And be warned, if you go 30 seconds over your time limit, I will be making some noises. So we are stick to time, and I'm going to achieve my goal as being Mr. Time Management Man, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Scott. I will be making noises. I like the way that came out. Our grammarian for today is David.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, I will be listening for excellent and sometimes less than excellent uses of the English language. Did somebody else pick a word of the day? Because if not, I'll do it right now. All right, hearing none. Adolescent is a young or middle-aged person who has interest traits, etc., that are usually associated with teenagers. Probably need, so I guess instead of a pubescent, we have an adolescent. So take that and figure out how to use it today. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Adolescent. Yeah, that was an interesting era for me. Our watcher for today is Viviana. Viviana?
Hello, everyone. I will be the watcher and to observe the visual presentation, like slide and then body language. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Viviana. And our vote counter is Monica. Is she? I don't see Monica currently. So we're going to proceed to the chat monitor, Michael, who is also not around.
In their absence, and since I am surplus to requirements today, Mr. Toastmaster, I'm happy to be the chat monitor and the vote counter.
All right, then.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. That was graceful of you. So maybe you can introduce the roles of the vote counter and the chat monitor.
Certainly, Mr. Toastmaster of the day. The role of the chat monitor is to monitor the chat. There is a chat box to the right for our guests, or down the bottom there'll be a little button that says chat. We carry on a lot of side chat during meetings, and part of my job is to let the Toastmaster of the day know if there's something that he needs to know from that chat. The other thing that I will be doing is we vote for the best evaluator, the best speaker, and the best table topic, provided people are eligible for those. If you wish to send a vote for those, then send them directly to me using the private message. So I will change my name from Graham in Brisbane to Graham the vote counter. Send me your votes privately, and I will then let everybody know who won what.
Thank you, Graham. That was excellent introduction. And now for our first speaker, it is fitting that when a bibliophile reflects on his experiences as a protege, that learning relationships with people take a second place to his relationship with books. Tonight, Norman Dow will speak on how books have mentored him. He's delivering a project from Presentation Mastery Path in the new educational system, the Pathways. It is Level 2, Learning Your Style, Project 3, Introduction to Mentoring. Time reserved for his speech is 5 to 7 minutes. The title is Protege to the Page. He will be evaluated by Jim Barber. Toastmaster Norman.
Thank you, Toastmaster evening and fellow Toastmasters. On Sunday evening, August 27th, 1978, the church was about half full. There were about 200 people there. The deacons were sitting on the front pew. In the pulpit, there were two people, the pastor and myself. He stood up and walked to the front and announced that the occasion was the initial sermon for Brother Norman Dow. And then he turned around and motioned to me and invited me up, and I preached my first sermon. At the end, he stepped back up to the pulpit and he said, "Brother Deacon, what is your pleasure?" And then the chairman of the deacon board rose and said, "Brother Pastor, I move that we license Brother Dow to the gospel ministry." And Pastor Mangum asked for a vote. There were no negative, just a chorus of amens. And with that, I was licensed as a minister in the Baptist church and began almost 40 years now of ministry. That vote was really interesting. I sometimes think about it as a speech contest. It could have gone down as well as it went up. Thank God it went up. As I approach this speech this evening on mentoring, Toastmasters has asked me to look back and to talk about a particular time when I have been successfully mentored. And there are three basic parts of my life journey. My Toastmasters, which I've been a part of on and off since 1977. My vocation, where I've been assistance program and management consultant, even a CIO, Chief Information Officer. And of course, the ministry. And I have never been formally mentored by another person. Toastmasters talks about mentoring as a long-term relationship, and coaching is basically skill-based and fairly specific with a defined beginning and end. There have been people that have helped me, but they've usually helped me more as a coach than as a mentor. And I really struggle this evening. Should I be transparent? Should I really say how I've been mentored, or should I, in a secular audience, sort of say something that is almost true but not true? I decided to be honest. You see, I started to say that I was mentored or protege to a page, which is, I am a bibliophile and I have over 3,000 volumes. I love to read. But really, I have not been mentored by the page, but I have been mentored by God. Now, God as a mentor is a novel concept. In the Black Baptist tradition, ministers who are licensed are really called the sons of the pastor and sons of the church. They're proteges to the pastor and really are part of the community of faith to help them grow to maturity in ministry. But that's not really what happened with me. I was really different. I am not in a particular standard. I'm a little unique. I recall early in my training that I went to seminary, and I was in the seminary, and I gave a speaking class or a homiletics class, a preaching class, and they were saying, wow, that's great Black preaching. Then 2 weeks later, I stood up in my home church and I preached a sermon, and pastor leaned over and said, Norman, how comfortable are you being Black and Baptist? And I think the emphasis on Black. I didn't understand that there were different traditions and different preaching styles. But really, we need a mentor. In fact, on the Bible, we had Joshua, we had Moses, we had Paul, who mentored Timothy and Titus. I wanted a mentor, and I went. I nominated this man and this man and this man and this man. Could you be my mentor? And finally, one day, God challenged me. He called me on it, and he said, aren't I enough? And immediately we said, aren't I enough? My knowledge of history went back to me, and I recall that in the time of the judges, when Israel was under a theocracy, the people wanted to be like everybody else, and they begged God for a king, and finally he gave them a king. And when the prophet Samuel said, I'm disappointed, God said, don't worry about it. They're rejecting me, not rejecting you. Was my quest for a human mentor rejecting God? Well, I've actually set out and become comfortable with the fact that God, in fact, is my mentor. And let me show you how this actually works. According to Toastmasters, a mentor focuses on multiple, often longer-term goals. God had called me, first of all, to teach and preach with the passage, my people perish for lack of knowledge. He also has called me to establish and plant churches that are examples of how churches actually should function today. According to Toastmasters, the mentors are responsible for supporting proteges as he or she works to accomplish their goals. Well, God baptized me in the Spirit and has given me ongoing insight and guidance as I seek to obey him. According to Toastmasters, a mentor gives general non-judgmental feedback and support. Well, God leads me in confirming voices when I am doing well and convicting voices when I get off point. According to Toastmasters, to mentors have personal involvement. Well, God indwells me with his Holy Spirit. And I'm really continually aware of his involvement in my life, day by day, moment by moment. According to Toastmasters, the task and steps of a mentor, of a protege, are determined by him. And God is a perfect parent. He's allowed me to choose how I pursue my task. And according to Toastmasters, the protege determines future actions. My goals are to do what God has told me to do. God has truly been my mentor, so much that I've actually changed the one I pray to. Some people pray to Jehovah with a hyphen, considering how he's revealed himself to them. Like, for instance, Jehovah Jireh. If God has revealed them as a provider, as he was to Abraham, when God provided for a sacrifice on the mountain. Well,
Time's
I
up,
looked it up.
Norman. Time's well up, Norman.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Norman, we're already a bit over time. So thank you for that wonderful speech. The Intro to Toastmasters mentoring actually is a precursor or a requirement to complete level 2, and that opens up an elective path in Pathways, which is mentoring path, Pathways mentor program. So that is elective, and if you choose so, Norman, after you complete level 2 and your Vice President Education approves your level completion, you will be able to see within 24 hours an elective path in your base camp, which is Pathways mentor program. So I would like to encourage you to have a look into it, because it's a long-term commitment that will last about 7 months in Toastmasters. And once you complete your one path and complete the Pathways mentor program, you can be certified as Pathways mentor. All right, our second speaker is Roger Fung. Leading in a volunteer organization requires many different skills, but there is one skill that one cannot do without as a leader or as a follower. This project is from the Path Strategic Relationships. It is level 5, demonstrating expertise, project 1, leading in your volunteer organization. Time reserved for this speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Title is Be Water, My Friends. Toastmaster Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Most of us who have been in Toastmasters for a while understand the tremendous value we can gain each and every week. Many of you have provided guidance, feedback, tips to me, let alone friendships. These happen both inside and outside of our club meetings. But as wonderful as many of our clubs are, running a successful volunteer club is no easy task. Mr. Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, and all of our valued guests. In this past year, being an officer of multiple Toastmasters clubs, I have found one secret that leads to successful clubs. And that secret is, be water, my friend. Now, some of you may recognize that be water, my friend, is a quote from the late Bruce Lee. So you might think, what does Bruce Lee, a Kung Fu master, has anything to do with Toastmasters? Well, stay with me. There are 3 biggest hurdles that I have faced as a club officer in this past year. Loss aversion, differences in our priorities, and life happens. First off, in cognitive psychology has found that most of us rather not lose something than to gain something. As mentioned earlier, being in Toastmasters, in each of our club meetings, we can gain tremendously of skills, of friendships, of ability to communicate and to lead. But what if when we're faced with a deadline at work? What happens when there's a schedule conflict? What gives? What do we drop? Unfortunately, our Toastmasters meetings are often dropped by many of our members. It's just that, it's not that I don't prioritize or I don't think it's important to come to Toastmasters, but I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose that promotion. Education and learning, that can wait. It is because of that fear of losing something that we feel stronger with that than gaining something, sometimes Toastmasters meeting get dropped. Second, other times our frustration in leading our clubs do come from differences of priorities. Now, just because you have decided to put everything else on hold to build up your club or work on an open house, don't expect all of your teammates to have that same priorities. When our priorities are not the same and not on the same level, frustration will come. It is not when. It is when, but not if. Third, life happens. Despite our best intentions, life has its ebbs and flows. If their priorities are not the same, even if their priorities are the same with us, sometimes because of life, ebbs and flows, everything gets changed. Case in point, on December 1st, 2016, on that morning when we woke up, my mother-in-law, whom lived with us, had a stroke. You can imagine, each and every priority of me and my wife has been changed and thrown out the window. Now, these are just 3 hurdles, but there are more. If major life events can happen to our members, if their priorities are often not the same as our priorities, if Toastmasters can be the first thing that our members may drop, why should we become a leader in the first place? Are we wasting our time? Are there ways that we can handle these hurdles effectively? My friends, this is where Bruce Lee comes in. More specifically, Bruce Lee's quote comes in. Be water, my friends. What does that mean? It means being flexible. 3 things that can help you become more flexible. 1, be prepared. Be over-prepared. When emergency happens, we don't have time to react. That's why we have fire drill. We have earthquake drill. We practice and over-practice. We prepare and over-prepare so that when emergency happens, we don't have to think too much. We can kick into automatic mode. In the same way, just like today, when we first started this meeting, there's some role holders weren't there, but because of the experiences of the various Toastmasters, we pick it right up and we continue on with our meeting. Second thing that you can do is to prioritize your needs and wants prior to emergency, ahead of time. Let's continue with the example of meeting roles. If one or two roles are missing, that's okay, because we tend to have enough people that can pick up another role. But what happens if we only have 4 people meeting? Can you really perform each and every role? Can some of the roles be dropped for one meeting? How can you decide which one is higher priority? Well, you don't have time to decide if you have not decided prior to the meeting. So therefore, we must prioritize our steps, our whole roles prior to meeting. This applies the same way outside of Toastmasters. Unless we have prioritized our needs and wants prior to the emergency happening, when emergency hits, we are a mess. We will not have the time or the mental ability to coolly decide what is important and what is secondary. Third, your past does not determine your future. No doubt you have seen this in investment literature. Investment past performance is not necessarily a guide to future performances. It works the same way in our meeting. Just because we had a great meeting last week doesn't mean we have a great meeting this week. Just because we have a bad meeting last week, it doesn't mean we have a bad meeting this week. Therefore, we must be focused into the present to give what we can give, the best that we can give. In closing, The secret to successful Toastmasters meeting is to be flexible. Be flexible enough to face anything that will come your way. And to enhance our flexibility, be over-prepared. Prioritize prior to meetings, and don't let your past trap you. Mr. Toastmaster.
Wow, that was like 1 second before the time closing. Mr. Timer, would you be kind to deliver the report on the prepared speeches?
Certainly, Mr. Toastmaster Day. Unfortunately, both speakers didn't qualify. Both speakers were over. Norman spoke for 8 minutes and 24 seconds, and Roger spoke for 7 minutes and 53 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. The next part of our Toastmasters meeting is my favorite part, the table topics portion. And our table topics master today or tonight is Jim Dent. Jim, take it away. I think Jim
looks to be frozen.
Yes. Okay, just to help out the time pass, the table topics is fairly scary for a lot of people. And one of the things that we usually do in our club is encourage members not to see it that way, because one of the things that I've learned from table topics is to think on my feet, to be able to speak freely without uttering any ahs and ums, and to be able to communicate my ideas on the spot. And since we have Jimmy back, Toastmaster Jim. Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay. Let me see, get my screen set up here. Okay, you ready for me? Table topics. I didn't know what the theme of the meeting was as millionaires, but it's similar. I picked a table topic based on this day, on May 21st, 1932. So my question is going to be based on the first. Amelia Earhart was the first aviation woman to fly nonstop across the Atlantic. And this was 5 years before she attempted around the world, which became the longest unsolved mystery in the history of flight. So my topic's going to be based around your first of something. So the first question is, and I'm going to ask the question first, then pick on somebody, so everybody gets a chance to kind of think about the question and not knowing whether you're going to be picked or not. So the first question is, what memorable first event of your own can you tell us about? And that will be let's see, Rolando.
Thank you, Jim. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. The first time I drove a car, I'll never forget when I was learning to drive. And believe it, it was exciting because I was learning to drive on my dad's stick shift Toyota, which is an old Toyota stick shift. My first time I'm trying to learn to drive. Imagine I'm trying to drive the first time and my dad said, don't worry, just press the gas and keep your head up front and hold the steering wheel. But he never explained to me about the clutch part, which is the hardest part when you're driving a stick shift. So every time I put my foot on the gas, and then the car dies. So every time I start it again, I put my foot on the gas, the car dies. And then he's telling me that, oh, you have to keep your foot on the clutch and try to lift it slowly before you push the gas. So finally, he just told me, okay, just lift your foot slowly and then push the gas. And I started doing that, and the car's still dying, but I was getting further down the road. But that was the first gear. And then I had to learn how to shift. So I can't drive all the way on the first gear. Otherwise, I'm going to cause damage to the car. So it was an experiment for me, an exciting experiment to be learning to drive and test shift. And I wonder, why did he have to pick his stick shift to teach me to drive? Why couldn't he borrow my mom's car or somebody else's car that was automatic to teach me to drive? And he told me that when you learn how to drive stick shift, then you can drive any car. That's why I taught you to drive an stick shift. Then you can drive any cars. Back to you, Mr. Table Master.
Thank you. Okay, my next question is, tell us about your first visit to or meeting that you attended at a Toastmasters club. And I'm going to pick Sam Moran.
Mr. Table Topic Master, my first visit to a Toastmasters club. That was about 15 years ago. I got my first job in sales, and I had to do a presentation. And no soon I was finished my presentation, and my manager comes to me and says, Sam, I got something for you. You have to join Toastmasters. He didn't say the reason why. I didn't even know what Toastmasters was. Now, once I got to look it up and talk to the people, he gave me a couple of clubs that he visited. I understood what he was trying to tell me. That at the time, my presentation skills were probably a lot less to be desired. The problem was when I arrived, this was a big club. It was a semi-advanced club. Everybody there seems to have born speakers. And the table topics came about, and they started picking people. Luckily, they said, you are welcome to pass if you don't feel ready to do it. So when they called my name, I kind of went like, I'll pass. And then the next person took the short, and she told a story in 3 minutes. I'm like, this is not for me. So needless to say, I didn't went back until my boss gave me an ultimatum and says, you do something or find something else. That's how I ended up in Toastmasters, and that was my first visit at Toastmasters, Mr. Table Topic Master.
Yeah, thank you. My next question is, tell us about the very first time you served as a speech evaluator. Viviana.
Okay, thank you, Jim. The first time I served as an evaluator, when I finished Competent Communicator project number 10, and I usually did not volunteer to be evaluator. because evaluator is a bit hard job for me. So the person requested me to directly evaluate project number 10. And I remember it was about like, I don't know, it's like a terrorist, and because the speaker did not inform me the topic, so I was difficult to grasp because I did not have the prior knowledge about the terrorists. So I think that from the first experience to be evaluator, I need to learn more to be as an evaluator. Is it easy to evaluate like a project number 1, but it is hard to evaluate like a project number 10 or even advanced speakers? And joining online Toastmaster is, as an evaluator, the hardest part is if the speakers are native speakers and they have they talk fast, and also if I hear different accent, then I need to adjust or listen carefully. Back to you, Jimmy.
Okay, I think we don't have any time for any more table topics, do we? I'm looking at the agenda. We should be moving on to evaluations. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So how long speech?
Go ahead,
I
Jimmy.
didn't, how long was Viviana's speech so that people can cast their votes for the best table topics speaker? Who's our timer?
Scott. 146, he says, in the
Yeah.
chat box.
I've just put it in the chat box. So Viviana was 146. And if you haven't seen it, Sam spoke for 1 minute and 50, and Rolando snuck in at 2 minutes and 26. Mr. Toastmaster.
So they're all qualified, right?
Yep. Or send your votes to Graham secretly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jimmy, once again. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And as mentioned, you can privately send your votes to our vote counter, Toastmaster Graham. At the chat box, you have an option to select a specific person. So if you click on the specific name and send your votes. Moving forward with our meeting, our next portion of the program is the evaluation program, evaluation portion. And our first evaluator is Toastmaster Jim Barber, who will be evaluating speech from Toastmaster Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. My fellow Toastmasters, our numerous guests this evening, and especially, of course, Toastmaster Norman Dow. Wow, Norman, this was impressive. I'm going to start with your video presence, just because that was just what struck me from immediately. Your dress was appropriate. Your attire was appropriate for the topic. Your background, blank, dark, excellent. It brought the focus into your face. That was just very, very well done. Very appropriate for this presentation. Great. Got that out of the way. Let's move to your real strength, your vocal power. Your vocal power, your vocal variety, your pausing, your pace, everything vocally is on target. I could listen to you for hours, and I'm not exaggerating there. You are a delight to listen to. I was mesmerized listening to you, and I was shocked when 8 minutes had gone by. Quite honestly, there are sometimes at Toastmasters where 5 minutes go by and I'm thinking it's been an hour. That was not the case with you. The time just flew past. Unfortunately, you had the same problem. And that is my first suggestion. You can do whatever works for you, but I find I cannot keep an eye on the timer. Sorry, Scott, but I cannot see what's going on there. So I use the Toastmaster app on my smartphone, and I just keep that down in front of my computer, and that keeps me on time, and I'll see if it stays on time for the evaluation. You need to find some way to time yourself so that you don't get caught off guard like you did tonight. Minor thing. But let's see, the other thing, other thing, your eye contact is incredible. It was great. But occasionally, when I put you in full speaker mode, I would see you looking down. I assume you were reading your notes. And so I'm trying something a little bit different tonight. I'm reading from notes also, but I've got my notes positioned off to the side of the screen rather than down. So I'm not looking down to see what's going on. I'm looking over at the side. I'm hoping maybe that's a little more conversational. It's something you might try also. But this was an incredible speech. I'm sorry it went long, but I would love to hear it some other time because this was really fantastic. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jim. That was a great evaluation. And to evaluate our second speaker, Toastmaster Roger, I would like to invite Toastmaster Rachel.
Sorry, I had technical difficulty unmuting myself. Roger, fun, excellent speech. What really grabbed me at the very beginning was your title. Great effective use of your title. I think a lot of times in Toastmasters, we don't use that title enough to really set the stage for our speech, but you used it perfectly. So great job there. The technical parts, right? So your background was perfect, and you're perfectly positioned in your cube. So in your cube, I see you in the center, all is well. My gift to you here is to make sure that if you're going to use hand gestures, that you either move your camera or make your hand gestures higher. There were some spots where they were cut, and so we see half of your hand gesture or effective use of them, but being able to see them all would be beneficial. Content-wise, great use of content. I liked how you gave us and used the typical beneficial rule of three. 3 things. 1, 2, 3. And it wasn't too much or too little. My gift to you here would be to perhaps use a visual aid here. The use of pause, if you're not going to use a visual aid, would be beneficial. That gives time for your listeners to really listen in and hone in on that 1, 2, 3. If you choose to use a visual aid, you can have fun with it because this is a fun speech. You could raise them up and then toss them. Just to have a little more fun with it because the content is light and hearty. Be like water. The first thing when you brought Bruce Lee into it, to me it fit perfectly. Sometimes when we make those collaborations with things that often don't seem to fit, we lose sight of that, but you were able to bring that full circle. So you were able to set the stage, tell us what you were going to use it for, use it, and then close with it. And of course, the theme, the flexibility. That's what Toastmasters is all about, being flexible. You really, throughout your speech, you were even flexible when maybe you forgot something, or I could tell that you were going with your ebbs and flows of your speech. So great job. And in closing, your energy. You are very passionate about what you speak about, and it comes through. So I encourage you to continue with that passion, but also be selective when you use your passion. You don't want to be overly excited or not excited enough on some topics. Sometimes overly excited, you lose a little bit, and not being excited enough, you also lose a bit. So for this topic, it was perfect. But as you give more trainings, just be aware that you want to be able to resonate with all of your audience. And some people may just not be passionate about some of these things. But overall, great topic, great speech, and I look forward to hearing more from you. So thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rachel. That was quite an insightful evaluation. And I do agree with Jen. It's my gift to you that it's a clever way of offering suggestions. So I'll definitely consider using that in my future evaluations. And to move forward, I would like to invite our grammarian for the day, Toastmaster David, to deliver his report.
All right. Actually, since it just came up, my gift to you, yes, Jen Tager noted in the chat that that was a clever way to offer suggestions. I was going to bring it up actually because I liked it. I'm sorry, falling apart here. I liked it the first time. When you repeated it and used it a second time, then I thought it went from being a clever turn of phrase to being more like a mannerism. So you don't want to fall into too many patterns of repetition. I do want to praise Norman for the quality of the storytelling and the language in his speech. And it, sometimes it's hard when it's your personal story and something you're wrapped up in and passionate. It's hard to watch that timer or to worry as much about that. But the idea of being mentored by the page versus being mentored in God, by God. What wonderful phrasing there, and you sort of took us through your thought process, where at some point you thought maybe I'll give a speech about being mentored by books, and decided no, it had to be mentored by God. And also that little bit of dialogue about how comfortable are you being Black and Baptist. I mean, maybe I can't quite identify with it, Norman, but I can understand the kind of impact that made on you. That's all I have for this evening, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Yes, thank you, Graham, for reminding. Please vote for the evaluators, for speech evaluators first, because both of them are on time, and you can send your votes to Graham, our vote counter, in a private message. Moving forward, our watchers report will be delivered by Viviana. Viviana?
Hello, everyone. So I give a general evaluation about what I observed today. First is, I think the eye contact is important. Sometimes we look down and sometimes we look up. I think that you need to watch your webcam in your computer so you can have eye contact with your audience. And the second is, some of us have a big gap above our head. So if you can adjust your position and your laptop, so to make sure that it doesn't have a big gap above your head. And the third one, there are sometimes speakers move forward and back like this. I think if you can be still, it will be better. And for Roger, I like you smile all the time during your speech. Okay, back to you, John.
Thank you, Viviana. That was a great report. Our counter report will be delivered by Toastmaster Elaine.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and valued guests, this is brand new territory for me, listening and counting and trying to determine what is important here. So first off, looking at the folks who responded to the table topics, having to be extemporaneous, I was most impressed that there were very few ums, ahs, and filler words. And here I am saying ums, ahs, and filler words. But, and I'm losing track of my notes, excuse me. Carrying on with the evaluators. Now, evaluators have many arenas that they are reviewing and also speaking extemporaneously. So there might be more ums and ahs there. And really, there was only one person who had ums and ahs there, and that was dear Rachel. However, she brought such enthusiasm to her evaluation. Nobody else, I'm sure, noticed the ums and ahs. Amongst our speakers, what I noticed, interestingly, was fewer ums and ahs, but repetitions of words that were like stumbled over words, like or that, or and. So those are things to be aware of as you relax into speaking whenever. But well done, folks. I enjoyed my first experience as a counter, and if I get to do it again, we'll see what I do next time. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Elaine. That was a great report. Our chat monitor is Graham. Graham?
Mr. Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, the chat has been particularly interesting today, not because we've got lots of information, which sometimes happens, links to various things that are mentioned, but because of the warm and effusive praise that has been offered to pretty much all of our speakers today. There has been some really encouraging, collegiate chat here today, and I'd like to thank all of the members for being so, and the guests for being so friendly and warm towards those that are taking part. And some good observations as well. If you wish to save the chat, you can just go to the chat box, click on the More button and click Save Chat, and that will save it to your computer. That's what's been happening in the chat today. Mr. Toastmaster, do you want me to do the vote while I'm here? In that case, I'll continue with the vote. I have, and the reason that I was not ready when you went to me was because I was trying to frantically to type them up. I have a best evaluator and a best table topics ribbon, which I will send to the individual recipients today once I've finished actually typing them in. But for the best topic today, it is congratulations to the clear winner, Rolando. Well done, Rolando, on an excellent table topic. And the other reason that I wasn't quite ready was that I was checking my votes, and after checking my votes and checking them twice, I got to tell you they were both really nice. I cannot decide because we've got equal votes, and I'm not going to register a casting vote. So congratulations to both of our best evaluators today, shared by Jim and Rachel. Mr. Toastmaster, I yield control.
Thank you, Graham, for covering both roles. Should we still proceed with the timers report, or since all the times are listed already?
I think we're done with that.
Okay, sure. And do we have a minute or two for the general evaluator?
Yes, let's hear from our general evaluator, and then we'll get a little bit of feedback from our guests.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Toastmaster, thank you. In the interest of time, I will keep it short. I will say thank you for starting on time. I appreciate the fact that we use the early part of the meeting to do the introductions, and that saves us time during the meeting. So appreciate that, being able to do that. One caution, couple of things that I will mention on evaluators and role keepers. We seem to have bled or rolled into other things. And like grammarian report, and I'm going to pick on you. If you went more into a general evaluation role, I felt, than just the grammarian report. So in order to keep it short and to stay on time, it might help if we stick with what we are supposed to be evaluating. I know that sometimes it was great. You picked on a lot of things. Nothing was out of place except two roles got mixed together there. Other than that, I will say to remember not to do what I'm doing, looking down, look at the camera, and for the suggestion, I'm going to buy one of those all holders, paper holders for the typewriters. I don't know if you remember those when you used to put it right next to each other so you can type. So that's a great idea. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sam. And that concludes my portion of the program. It was a great pleasure for me. And I would like to return the control of the proceedings to our president, David.
All right. Let's try and hear from a couple of our guests. Sarah, I was about to introduce you when technology betrayed you, but would you like to say hello, Sarah, and tell us where you're from and what you thought of tonight's meeting? Say, I can unmute you. You're unmuted.
Okay, great. You can probably see that I'm in Australia at the moment, but I'm from the US, as you can hear. Let's see, I've done Toastmasters for on and off for a year in another, my first 10. And I'm here because I want to develop the courage to start giving online courses and to start leading workshops in person. Definitely feel like I could use work. Oh, and it looks like my connection is unstable at the moment, so who knows what you're hearing.
we heard most of it. There was a little fade in there, but at any rate, we hope you'll come back, maybe with a better internet connection next time. But if not, any way you can get here works. That's wonderful.
I'm in this little village in the rainforest, and with everything being so spread out in Australia, it's just like good luck.
All right. All right. Well, we have a bunch of Australians on the line tonight, but most of them aren't in the rainforest at the moment. So let's hear from Jen Teeger. Say, we don't seem to be hearing you yet. Jen, are you? Jen, are you the one who's dialed in on the phone, or? Jen, were you using the phone connection? I unmuted that, if that's you.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes. Okay. All right. We have the technology.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Jennifer Teeger, and I'm here in the Dallas area. Thank you so much for letting me sit in and join the meeting. I was very interested to see how a Toastmaster meeting could be held online, and that was my son, Frankie, stepping in and saying he enjoyed the meeting too. And I will have my vocal or audio stuff worked out a little better next time I join to see how it works.
All right. Well, we hope you do come back. Ray, what did you think? So, I'll unmute you.
Hello, everybody. No, it was a really nice meeting. I thought it went really smoothly, and I enjoyed listening to all the speakers. And I think I'm interested in coming back. And I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
You hear that, everybody? He thought it went smoothly. So even if you didn't think it was going smoothly, it went smoothly. It's front Ray's on. Ben, what did you think?
This was fantastic. Thanks so much for having me. I loved the warmth of the meeting, even though we're all in different parts of the world, right? So that was terrific, and I love the brevity. It's just an hour. So it's really great, because I've gone to a lot of Toastmaster meetings that are 2 hours, and then I stretched it to 2.5. So an hour, an hour 15 is really great. Yeah, love it.
Which unfortunately required us to be mean to Norman, but not all the time. We're not always mean to Norman. Sometimes we're mean to other people. And let's hear from again. It's Lahiru.
Yeah. So it was a wonderful meeting. Actually, I really enjoyed it, and I'm interested in coming back. And I really liked the organization. And something new to me was the chat evaluation. So I really learned how the online meeting of a Toastmaster is different from a regular meeting, but I like most of the features that you guys have introduced into this new meeting of the Toastmaster. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, fantastic. And Paul, are you there? Paul, you're unmuted if you'd like to.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was trying to unmute the line. No, I thought the meeting went really well. I think it's really interesting. This is my first virtual meeting, so it's really cool for me to experience this new format. And for me, with my job, I have a lot of global employees and work internationally, so we're always on VTC, always on the internet. So this is perfect practice for me, and this is exactly what I'm definitely looking forward to. So.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to simulate some of that business interaction that I say actually that it kind of sneaks up on people these days. Is you never know when a video connection is going to open up.
Exactly.
You might be expected to be on camera. Powder your nose. All right. Well, we have a mostly full roster for next week. If any of our guests want to confirm, just come back to the website and fill out the RSVP form. We do want to lure you in. Our VP of membership, Lois, will be following up with you to nag you a little bit on that. I mean, nobody remembered to say when I asked for feedback, boy, I'm dying to join this club. That's what you're supposed to say. So just so you know, when you come back next time, that's what you're supposed to say. Those are the rules. Have a great week, everybody, and we do hope to see you again next week.
Right, and next week, Graham is our Toastmaster of the day.
All right. Hey. All right.
Have a good week. Have a good week, everybody.
See you all.
Good night.